All right, welcome back, everybody. And I have investor extraordinaire and a friend of mine, Ashley Kehr. Ashley, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So Ashley and I met through my old business partner, Steve Rosenberg, and she's a big wig with Bigger Pockets, and she has been investing in real estate for a long time. So Ashley, tell us a little bit about your journey into investing in real estate, and then what we want to do is kind of pivot that and talk to you about how can property managers work with investors and vice versa.
Yeah, sure. So to start off, I actually graduated college as an accountant and I was going to become a CPA. Well, I started working for an accountant and I quit within 6 months. I could not sit at a desk. I hated it. So I
So
ended up
poor
quitting.
ROI on that investment, huh?
Yes. So as much as to my parents' disappointment, I quit my job. And I started working for a real estate investor who was actually the father of a childhood friend. And the job description was, I need you to help me get organized. And what I didn't understand was that meant he needed me to manage a 40-unit apartment complex. So for some reason, the fact that had an accounting background translated to he believed that I could manage this apartment complex. So the first day I walk in and the office is a small room, no windows. There's a little bathroom attached. There's no heat or air conditioning actually going to this room. And it's in
And
the
where
40-unit
is it
apartment
located?
complex. What's that?
And it's located where?
Inside of the apartment
But it's
complex.
located in Buffalo, right? Aren't you at
Yes, yes, yep,
Buffalo, New
yep.
York?
So in
So
Buffalo,
no,
yep.
no heat in Buffalo, New York. That's got to be fun in January and February.
So in this little office, I walk in and there's just boxes of the lease agreements, and the lease agreements were 1 page long. There was a drawer that had keys in it, some labeled, some not. And this was my first impression of property management. So I started tackling with what I knew, and that was the bookkeeping. So, okay, I at least know how to enter the rent checks and make the deposits and how to pay the
See who's
bills.
not
Okay.
paying, right? And see who's not paying,
Yep.
right?
So from there, it took me really about 3 years to find out about property management software. Because also on the desk, the person who had been managing it previously literally had taken a piece of paper, a ruler, and a marker and made grid lines
Made their own
and
Excel
went
spreadsheet.
horizontal and vertical grid lines with the ruler and put each tenant's name for 40 tenants. And there was also 40 garages too, and would mark and check it the box in red if they paid rent or not for the
Was this in
month.
like 1960? What, like
This
what?
was in 2012 or 2013,
Oh my
2013.
goodness.
Yeah. So this investor, he had a bunch of other businesses, and these were just kind of investments his brother had helped him get into, and he didn't really ever do anything with them. And so when I went in, I had to really learn everything about property management. But I started helping him with some of his other business stuff, and he was trying to acquire a new business. And I saw how he took this apartment complex, he did a cash out refinance, pulled his money out, and used that to buy his new business that he was getting into. And right there was like a light bulb moment for me as to like, wow, this is the power of real estate. And that's when I started buying real estate on my own and developing my portfolio. But I continued to manage for him until the beginning of 2020, and then I handed it off to a third party property management company. They managed it for 3 years. And now I brought the management back in house as of May 2023. But this time I'm not managing, I'm not doing all the day to day. I've actually built out a team in house who's handled everything. And then I just oversee everything as it goes.
So did you bring it in-house because they weren't doing a good job, or did you bring it in-house because there you saw an opportunity where you can actually create your own management firm?
It was more because they weren't doing a good job. And I felt like there was more stress and more involvement on my side than I had expected, and just so many things going wrong that I knew that I could do a better job. But I also knew I didn't want to go back to that girl who was staying up super late, who was crying because a tenant was being mean, ripping my hair out with stress of different things happening. So I knew that I had to do it different this time. And that's where I really started to build out the systems and processes. And I actually hired virtual assistants who run everything that can be done through the property management software. And then I have one guy who's the boots on the ground that does the showings and he does the maintenance. But
Oh,
we don't
wow.
take on any clients. Just for anyone that I'm a business partner with, if they have additional units outside of us, I will bring them on. And then it's just my units too. So altogether, we have about 130 commercial and residential units. And then we have 51 garages that we do too, storage units.
Interesting. Okay, so in theory, you're not really third party managing for anybody because you're
Correct.
managing for all the owners and the partners. And so do you find that, an apartment complex versus a garage versus commercial, they're similar, but they're different, right? Do you have that?
Oh, very different. And I think that was a huge mistake when I was hiring this third party property management company. I did not ask how many actual apartment complexes they had. Like I did not, and I found out later on that their majority of their portfolio that they were managing was single family or very small multifamily. We had two large complexes, 40 units each, and we were the only ones that they were managing that large for. And they really struggled with how different it is from managing a single family home.
Yeah, I've always when I talk to property managers, I always tell them like, be super focused, be like a sniper, not a
Mhm.
not a shotgun. And Steve and I say we make a pizza, it's a cheese pizza, and that's all we make. And so we
Yeah.
stay single family. As much as Steve tried to get me to do multifamily, we stayed with single family because
Yeah.
I think they may be in the same classification, like it's property management, but to us, because I had run smaller, 50 and 100 unit apartment complexes, I knew it was completely different as far as
Yeah. One of the biggest things that drove me crazy was disputes between tenants. That was literally the thing that drove me insane with being a manager is like, I am not your mom. I am not the police, like coming to me with every little thing. It was just, that was so aggravating. And when you're doing single family, usually that's the only family in the unit or the only person in there. So you're not dealing with a lot of that other stuff too. And common areas, disputes over common areas or, keeping it clean, different things like that was definitely a big headache.
my first place I bought was a duplex. And literally, I get handed the keys, I buy it, and like the next day, both tenants are calling me up. Like, I don't know anything about anything. And they're calling me up and they're basically, upset with each other about the use of the yard. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what? I'm like, that was my first, like, that literally like my first like foray into property management or to owning investment properties.
Hmm.
Oh man. And I didn't know anything about property management at the time. I didn't even know that there was an industry for property management, or else I probably would have found somebody a lot quicker back then. That was
Yeah.
2001. So showing my age there. So, all right. So couple of things that you touched on. And so one of the big things is you said that they weren't doing a good job. And
Hmm.
so as an investor, I know, you have your own podcast and you work with a lot of newbie investors and seasoned investors, both with single family and multifamily. Right? Do you do just multifamily or do you have some single family people that
I
you
have a
kind
couple
of?
single family too.
What when investors are looking for a property manager, what do you see are like the most important traits that a property management company have to make sure that relationship is successful right from the get-go and stays successful?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is um not necessarily their traits, but like is finding out their systems and processes. You need to sit down and write a list of like different scenarios or different things that can come up and ask the property manager how they handle this. Like even something as my tenant calls you that their dishwasher isn't working. What is the process? So one thing with this property management company is their departments didn't communicate. they had this like break in the chain, like, somebody would move out, leasing would move the person out, but then it never got sent to maintenance for the turnover. And then the apartment just sat and nobody realized it. Nobody said anything. Leasing thought maintenance was taking care of the turnover and it was just taking a long time. So I think understanding what their systems and processes are and understanding like, okay, do they have an actual system in place that works? That really was like a thing that I wish I would have looked more into of how things are handed off and gone through the line. But then also communication.
I was just
What,
going to bring up the
yeah.
deadly C word. Yes.
Like, how are they communicating to you? It got to the point where with this property management company, I had to only send emails. I literally refused to get on the phone with them because I wanted everything in
Right.
writing. And I think that is great advice just to keep, even if you have a great property manager, is that you always have record of everything. And even with my contractor, I just finished up a flip house. There's been 3 times where I had to scroll back in text messages and I sent him a screenshot saying like, no, you said you were doing this or whatever. And you'd be like, oh yeah, sorry, I'll get it done today. So everything in writing, but how are they going to communicate to you where you're at? When are you getting the owner statements? How are they updating you on, what the vacancy rate is? How many open work orders? So the company is Buildium, and from my end, I could not see any outstanding work orders. I couldn't see, who was waiting. And that was really the hardest part is we had no idea of customer satisfaction as the owners of the property, where they in Buildium, you can send a tenant survey, but the survey gets back to the property managers. So I actually set up my own survey in Google Forms and asked them to send it all out. And then I was the only one that received the responses from the survey too. But I think understanding how they will communicate to you, what's the best way for you to communicate with them, and just remembering that you're still an asset manager. Even when you hand something over to a property manager, you're still the asset manager too.
Do you find that most investors want to be kind of more hands-on than what the property managers would like? Or do you find that they only are hands-on in the very beginning, and then when they build that trust, they kind of go hands-off? What are your thoughts? Because I know as a property manager, I flip and hated when those investor owners or any owner wanted to be in the middle of things and like, no, call my brother-in-law. He's a great plumber. Like, he's not
Yeah.
licensed, he doesn't have insurance, but he's a great plumber. Like, you got to call it like. So where's the balance on that? Do you think?
And that's the exact reason why I'm not taking on other people as clients because I can't, I would not be able to handle that.
Third party
No, like
management is a
as
huge
of
job.
right now, like if I make a mistake, I'm responsible to myself. And my other partners, I've made them so much money that if I make a mistake right now, like not a huge deal to them. But if it was somebody who's paying me and has hired me to do this job for them, and I made a mistake or they disagreed, and even though I felt like I was right, that would, just make me really upset and I couldn't handle it. So I think that there needs to be clear expectations up front. So as the property manager, you need to say like up front, these are, the guidelines you have to follow. This is what we expect from you. So
Rules
one
of
thing could be is if a maintenance request comes in and our minimum is say $500, we need a response from you as the owner within 24 hours, because that is how we are going to schedule it on time. We're going to get it fixed on time. And then it needs to be upfront as to, as the owner, here are the things we allow you to be involved in. So is vendor selection, and you have to send us your list, submit it. Whether you have some kind of procedure where, as the property manager and we're hiring them, we need to do some kind of vetting to add them to our list. We need to make sure they're insured to protect ourselves too, along with you. So I think having that list of here's things you are allowed to be involved in. Other than that, you are in breach of contract as our client trying to get involved into that. And I think if you have those clear expectations, you also show confidence that that you are confident in these tasks and these roles that you can do. But
I'm the
the
professional. I'm the professional property manager. You're the real estate investor. You found the property. You found a great deal.
Mhm.
I'm going to go ahead and manage that deal. I'm the asset manager, the property manager. You're the
Yeah.
investor, right?
Yeah.
And I also do believe that I like that approach actually, where you say, hey, these are the things where you're involved in, these are things you're not. If you want vendors, this is our approval process. I love the investor that tells me like, hey, send me all the applications. I want to approve them.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're not for us. I think, or you try to train them, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of training, how you do business on the front end. And once they build that trust, then they kind of let you do your thing. Is
Yeah.
what I found. Is that what you see on your side as well?
Well, I never developed that trust with my property manager, but I think that what happened in the beginning was I was the opposite. In the beginning, I was like, wow, this
Hands
is such
off.
a relief off my shoulders. Like, this
Mm,
is great. You guys take charge. I don't have to do anything. I felt like I was on vacation. It felt so good. But the problem was I was too hands off. I wasn't looking into things enough. I was letting things slide because you know what? Like, they just got the properties, things like that. So that time period really was a weakness of mine that I actually should have been paying more attention. So like my expectations to the property manager were kind of set loosey goosey because I let so many things go in the beginning because I was just enjoying not having to manage the properties anymore.
yep.
So I
And then
think
all of a
what,
sudden, 6 months later, you're like, holy cow,
yep.
this is not producing anything that produced when I was running it.
Yeah. And I think one thing that my property management company tried to do was they tried to set up like a meeting and, like, okay, let's go over what's wrong with, different things like that. Where I think I would have preferred if it was more proactive, like, especially first with onboarding, is to like reach out to me and ask me like, how is everything going? Here are your numbers. Here's what you're at for vacancy rate. Here's what, we've calculated your cash flow to be for these properties. Here's the maintenance we expect to be, coming up on the property, different things like that. And they actually, which would almost classify as like an asset management meeting. And that's kind of what I do with my partners now is to like, I do these meetings with them where it's like, okay, here's everything. Here's where we're at, and that gives chance, not that they ever really give any feedback because they have no idea about real estate investing, but it kind of gives them some insight where if a property management company did that to me, I would feel like I had more control over it because they were actually giving me a lot more information than just sending me an owner's report every month and me having no idea of how many work orders actually came in, how quickly is the work getting completed, things like that. And especially if you are a property manager that does a great job of that, like showcase that, tell your owners, like brag about that. And then also like if there is something that isn't working, why isn't it working? And explain that to the owner and say, you know, this is what we're doing. But one of the best ways to, if you have a problem and like maybe a tenant isn't allowing you access or whatever, is come up with 3 solutions and then give it to the owner to decide. And so, like, here's our 3 solutions. This is a unique scenario. We want to give you the option. Do we give 48 hours notice and we force our way in and tell the tenant, like, per law, we can come in to make this repair? Would you like us to try to contact them one more time, or should we just forget about the repair and not make it? Whatever those solutions may be, but I don't like it when someone comes to me with a problem without any idea of a solution. And I
Right.
think as a property manager, like when you are presenting a problem, it's going to be stressful for the owner. They're going to think about, like, even though they don't have to actually communicate and talk to the person, like they're thinking about, oh, what's this going to cost me? Things like that. So if you can have a problem, maybe have 3 quotes already, present it, those are just a couple of different little random things that you could do to make your owner feel more secure and more involved without them actually having to be involved.
Yeah, you touched on a couple of things, right? So like what I found is every time, especially if I'm not a proactive and I'm a reactive company, every
Mhm.
time I reached out to the owner, it was always bad news, right? Every time the owner
Yeah.
would see my
Yeah.
email on my phone, he'd be like, "Oh my
Yep.
Either they're trying to
Yeah,
sell something,
it's true.
or like I have agita, or I get a stomach ache because it's bad
Mhm.
news. And so you said, like, when you do something good, you should really like you let your client know, right? Like, pat
Yeah.
yourself on the back, give yourself accolades. And I think not enough property management companies do that, right?
Hmm.
They sometimes we do a lot of good work and we don't even let the owner
Yeah.
know, right? Sometimes it might be, a work order comes in and it was cosmetic and we denied it, or a work order comes in and we were able to troubleshoot over the phone and we saved the owner, a trip charge or whatever. And those just get done, and that, like, no one's even telling the
Yeah.
owner any of that stuff. Or so there's a balance though of like too much communication, not enough
Right.
communication. What type of communication? And I don't know if anybody has the right answer on any of this stuff, because like the last thing you want to do is send your an owner and an investor client an email every time you do anything. Hey, I just took a poop. Like, here's an email.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I
like,
think too, like that's a
congratulations.
perfect opportunity to hire a virtual assistant. Where is if an owner does have questions, or a property manager does something great, is you have that virtual assistant to communicate that information to the tenant. So it's not bogging down the time of your property management, or it's just like a standard monthly thing that you are sending out. Like, here's the highlights of your portfolio. Here are the low points of this. Like, we actually had to do like a $300 plumbing repair in this property. It was under the minimum, but here's what happened, whatever. In a VA, that would be easy for them to go into each owner's portal, look at each thing, and send it off. But
Yeah, if they're not sure
still
how to
time
write an
consuming.
email, they can also use Chat GPT. And
Yeah.
like, and we have our remote team use Chat GPT all the time now to
Yeah.
come up with responses.
Hmm.
So you said you use a lot of virtual assistants. I did not put you on here for virtual assistants, although everybody knows that I run a VA company. But tell me some of the things that your virtual assistants did for you when you first created your property management firm.
Yeah. So actually, my first one was from your company, Davina. She is amazing. And she enters all the rent checks for me and also enters all the payables, gets them ready for me to hit pay. So every month we use a virtual mailbox, post mail scan, I think it is. And so all of our mail is sent to this mailbox and they scan it in for us. Davina goes in and she sorts and separates the mail. So anything that needs gets filed into our Google Drive. Anything that is a payable gets uploaded. We use Appfolio for our software, uploaded into there. And then she goes through and she enters every payable that needs to be paid. And then the same with the rent checks. The rent checks also get sent and scanned in. So she's able to see the rent checks. She's able to enter them in. And then the rent checks actually get forwarded to our boots on the ground guy, who actually takes them and deposits them at the bank. But we have very few people who actually pay by check or money order anymore. Most are online. So that's nice. But
That's a beautiful
that's
thing.
what she does, that side of things. So that's like wonderful. I can't stand clutter. I can't stand mail. So having a virtual mailbox has been amazing. And everything is right there. So I can go in at any time and I can check and I can view the mail. Okay, what's coming in, what needs to be taken care of. But she's done an amazing job. But I can always go back and review it. Where if you're getting paper mail, I have, if I'm, especially if someone else is receiving that mail, I have no checks and balances, where at least it's saved into this post mail scan and I can go
Here it
through and,
is.
delete it eventually when they start charging me for storage. But that, I love that checks and balance, because I always used to open the mail, I'd read through it, and then I would have somebody that was helping me, um, actually go and pay the bills and stuff like that. But that still was so time consuming, of having to physically open the mail, sort the paper, and then paying someone to scan it in and then
Yep.
do everything else. So I love this process. It's probably my favorite process that we have. And then I have another,
More and more people
go
are
ahead.
going to virtual. So give us that one
Yeah.
more time. That company that you're using.
VPM.
No, no, I'm sorry for
Oh,
the mail, for the mail.
oh, I
So
thought you were
funny.
just trying to get free to
No,
promote you again.
no, 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 for the mail. I think that's really
It's
because more
post mail scan.
post mail scan. Okay, I
Yeah.
think it sounds more and more people are
Or
going.
maybe it's post scan mail, one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
But more and
virtual
more people
mailbox.
are going to virtual offices, so I think that's a
Yeah.
really unique idea. So
And also the place that it's actually sent is, there's different locations everywhere that you can select. So it's actually just a 20-minute drive from my house. So like if there was anything that I actually needed But then they'll shred things for you if you want. They'll recycle things. So it's great.
All right. I think we lost you there for a quick second,
Oh, you
Ash.
did? Okay.
Yeah. So just
Want
talk
me to just
about,
say that again?
yeah. So like they're
Okay.
about 20 minutes away.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So you can pick the location, and the one that I picked is about 20 minutes away where they actually receive the mail and scan it in. So especially with my tenants, when they're sending in check, they're sending it to a local mailbox number. So it doesn't, take forever. Their mail isn't going across the country or anything like that. And they realize it's local, which gives more of a sense of security. But then with that, if there's ever a package or anything else that I need to actually physically get, they'll either forward it to my house and I get it next day, or I can physically go there and pick something out too. So I love that aspect of it, that you have those options.
That's very cool. It's something that we just popped up in our conversation. We hadn't talked about this,
Yeah.
this idea beforehand.
Yeah.
All right, let's pivot. Let's pivot a little bit. You
Okay.
wrote a book called The Real Estate Rookie: 90 Days to Your First Investment. So tell us just a little bit, like maybe like high level, like what are some of the investment strategies that you go over in the book? And then think of like a PM. We deal with a lot of reluctant landlords. We deal with a lot of people that may or may not want to get into real estate, but then they somehow get into real estate, whether it's like, they have to move or whatever it is, and they don't want to sell the house. How can we leverage that? And how can we leverage our knowledge as property managers into, helping our clients invest and buy more properties?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first of all, you could read my book, Real Estate Rookie. You could give it out to your clients. So if you get a
That's a
client
great
that has
idea.
their first property, you could give them my
That's that's
book.
that's a great idea. Yeah. We
You can
actually do
actually
that.
use the code Ashley for 10% off. It might be Ashley 10 or Ashley at BiggerPockets too, biggerpockets.com.
Ashley, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. But
Ashl.
yeah, so I think like offering education to your landlords, even if it is a landlord that has a bunch of properties and maybe they've been doing it for 20 years, laws change over time. And especially if they were a DIY landlord, they might not actually know. So offering resources, and the more informative your owners are, the less they're going to give you pushback if you are a good property manager, because they're going to understand what the laws, what the rules are. So like in New York, you have to give a 14-day notice. If your owner doesn't know that, they're going to be frustrated. Like, why haven't I gotten the eviction paperwork? Stuff like that. It's been 10 days, blah, blah, blah. In Buffalo, where I invest, there's two organizations, Home NY and Belmont. So Belmont is the one that gives out Section 8 vouchers, and Home NY is just like a home resource for all different kinds of housing, a housing organization. They both offer free or very low cost classes. So what I would suggest to a PM is having these resources available, and if you send out a newsletter to your owners, whatever, say, hey, here's a free class you can take to understand the tenant landlord laws. And, an owner could say, well, that's what I hire you for, to understand that. And yeah, that's fine. But like, if you're going to go and purchase more property, don't you want to understand as to like what you're getting into when you're purchasing that property? Like right now in New York State, we went through a change with commissions, where now if you want to do a showing, you have to sign a paper with the agent that shows you the apartment, saying that you will pay them a commission if you buy this house.
That's not just New
And
York. That's
and it's everywhere. Yeah.
that's
So
national.
buyers right now nobody's going to showings. Nobody is going because they don't understand, because nobody wants to sign that paper. Like even
Right.
at, like we put in one of our listings that just got listed yesterday that we will pay it, but that person still has to sign that paper to get in. So like under educating everyone about what these changes are to, buying houses, to selling houses, to managing houses, to tenant landlord law, all of that, I think is such a great value to help your client understand, but also providing market research, the market analysis with Chat GPT. It is so easy to analyze a market, sending out updates to your, clients saying, here's what's going on in our market right now. That is such a valuable information, especially if you're in niche areas, like niche down to neighborhoods, things like that. That's so easy to collect that information and to give it out, but not everyone knows how to get that information.
I think those are two great ideas. I like the newsletter idea a lot.
Mhm.
Having a newsletter with the information, giving out books. So we actually, before you wrote your book, used to give out a book named by a guy named by John Burley. Not sure if you know his name,
I
but
don't think so.
John Burley had written a book, like intro to real estate. So I think that's a great idea. So
Mhm.
um, we actually did that, bought a whole bunch of his books. So I think people should buy a whole bunch of your books and
Yeah,
give those
just
out.
make sure they are a rookie investor, because I feel like if you give this to some old veteran that's investing for 30 years, a rookie bookie's gonna take offense and
Yeah, you
not
pull
like
back at
that.
you. I hate you. Yeah. Another thing
Yeah.
that I like that you said, like I never even thought of it, but become the expert in your market, and the
Mhm.
number one way to do that is with the data.
Yeah.
And so that market analysis, I think, is really golden. And we used to have monthly, or I don't know, it was quarterly or monthly, I forget. But we used to have like we used to call them owner education seminar series. And like you
Oh,
can come to
cool.
our office back in the day.
Yeah.
Now you can do it through Zoom, but
Hmm.
it's another idea is, going and doing a monthly Zoom call with all of your owners and just going over market and just data or just investing in general.
Yeah.
Because we are the experts in property
Yeah.
management, not just, and we also know the market. We know what they lease for.
Hmm.
Like one of the
Yeah.
things that used to drive me nuts was when one of our clients would buy a property through some other agent. The
Hmm.
agent would tell them that it would rent for $2,000. We get the property and we would lease it and we'd like, yeah, it's a $1,600 rental. And then the owner would get upset with us because the agent said it was $2,000. Meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, the agent told you that so they can sell you the property.
Yeah.
We're telling you like it's real. So I
And I
think,
think that right there is like a wonderful point, as far as like you acting as the agent for the sales for purchase or dispo of a property on the property management side, and like talking about those advantages. So when I heard my property management company, I knew they had a brokerage and sold real estate. But that was one thing that was amazing about them, was that I used their agent to sell a couple of my properties. I didn't have to do anything. They coordinated with the property manager to set up showings, to do everything. It was the most hands-off experience I've ever had selling a house that was occupied with tenants. It was great. And I think highlighting some of those things, but also having a marketplace or some kind of process for your owners that want to sell their properties and owners that want to buy properties, like somehow showcasing that you have the ability to get first dibs on properties that our owners are selling. So that, I think, is especially if you're a larger property management company, that is such a great advantage to your owners, is knowing that they could have first look or first dibs too on a
yeah,
property.
they might save thousands of dollars in
Mhm.
purchasing. So this way,
Yeah.
when you do make a mistake, because we all make mistakes,
Yep.
they realize, okay, you cost me 500 here, but you made me 5,000 on a purchase.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah.
know. All right, so we're running out of time. So the last question I'm going to ask you before we hit our commercial break real quick, and then the lightning round. Um, a lot of property management companies are looking to grow, and obviously there's two or three buckets, right? And the main bucket is the investor bucket. How can property managers link up with investors? Like where do the investors hang out? So if I'm a property manager, like we have NARPM. So when I sell to property managers, I just go to NARPM and there's a bunch of property managers and I can
Mhm.
sell to
Yeah.
them. But you as a property manager, you just can't go somewhere like, oh, here, I'm going to put a booth out and I'm going to hang out with all these investors. So what would you recommend, or ways property managers can find investors that to, for potential clients?
Okay, so I got two resources right off the top of my head. And the first one is biggerpockets.com/teams. So they actually are implementing a property manager marketplace where people who belong, I mean, there's over 1 million subscribers to Bigger Pockets, that they can go onto there and they can search for property managers in your market. So you'll be able to have your contact information on there, tell a little bit about your company, things like that, and people will be able to go in and actually contact you and find you. Going into the BiggerPockets forums and setting up there, you can set up keyword searches. So anytime somebody searches property management in, Buffalo, or just Buffalo, New York in general, you'll get, something will bring it up. And even if it's not anyone asking even about finding a property manager, you get involved by answering questions. There's this guy, his last name is Irish Jones, and he's from Buffalo, and he has a property management company here. And I've never met him. I don't know anything about him, except that I've seen his name all over the BiggerPockets forums, responding to questions about Buffalo, giving, and he's not just saying, hey, hire me, he's going in and giving advice to people, which I think gives him so much more credibility and networking. The second thing I would say is going to conferenceconnect.com. So this is a website where you can go on and you can find conferences across the world, across the world, really.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, so, and you'll just type in what kind of conference you're looking for, and you can search, real estate conference. So obviously the BiggerPockets BPCon is a huge conference. There's Limitless, Brandon Turner does a Better Life Tribe conference that is specific to real estate investing, the REI Summit, I think it's called. So I think, going to that website and just searching. And also if you know a couple like key people in the real estate investment side, such as Brandon Turner, search Brandon Turner as a speaker, because there's speaker profiles on that website too. And you can see which conferences he is speaking at. And if he's speaking at a conference, you can kind of look at it, see, okay, this one is for investors. And I think attending conferences and networking. But as far as like, if you want to get more focused into your specific niche, it's attending the real estate meetups. So BiggerPockets has a page where you can look at meetups in your area. In Buffalo, there's one, I think it's every second Wednesday of the month, and going to those meetups for real estate investors as the property manager.
I love it. That's some great ideas. Awesome. All right, we're going to be right back, and I'm going to put you on the lightning round. All right, everybody, right back after this. All right, we're back with Ashley Kehr out of Buffalo, New York. Everybody, I'm from New York, but not Buffalo's like 8 hours from where I'm from originally. All right. And Ashley gets lots of snow around November through June.
Yeah.
All right. So a couple of these you already answered here. So what PM software do you use?
Appfolio.
And do you use virtual assistants?
Yep. So I use the one I talked about from VPM, and then I've also used Scale Virtually. That's where my full-time virtual assistant is, that does all the tenant communication, stuff like that.
What is one piece of advice you would give someone just starting out in the PM business?
That's a great question. I would say the first thing is to build out your systems and processes, know the logistics of your business. That's the biggest thing and keeping track as things come up, make sure you're documenting how you handle that. So you never have to do the same thing again without having some kind of checklist or some kind of process. And that way you're set up to continuously starting to outsource too.
What's your favorite fast food restaurant?
I honestly don't eat fast food, really. Like, I can't
Not
even tell
most
you.
people don't. They never
Yeah.
notice to claim they like fast food. But if you were hungover one day and you had to have a go-to, and you
I mean,
had
does Chipotle count?
we'll let it count for
Fast
this.
food? Or Chick-fil-A, I guess. I do eat Chick-fil-A
There you
chicken
go.
sometimes,
Chick-fil-A.
yes.
All
So
right.
there.
All right. What was your first job?
My first job was a hostess at the restaurant, the Boston Hotel.
Nice. What's your ideal vacation?
I really want to take my kids on a trip to, one child wants to go to Italy and one child wants to go to Greece, because he's learning about lots of Greece and stuff. And but for me, my dream would be whatever safari.
I think we lost you for a second.
Oh, you did? Oh, I'll just say it real quick. That my dream would be to take the kids on an African safari.
Oh, I like that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. What is one thing that most people don't know about you?
I went to the world championships for archery when I was younger.
No way. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. As a spectator or as a
No,
participant?
I was participating.
Nice.
That
Uh,
would be funny if I always said that and then I actually was just there spectating. I definitely didn't place, but I qualified and I went.
That's amazing. Yeah. What's one book that you're currently reading or one that's impacted your business or life that you would recommend?
So, a book that I'm currently reading is my first fiction book that I've probably read in 15 years. And it's called The Perfect Son. It was recommended by my sister, but it's pretty good so far. I haven't made it super far into it. But a business that, or a book that has impacted my business the most was, I would say, like very recently, is Buy Back Your Time.
Okay. That's Dan Martell, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. What is one challenge you're currently facing in your business?
Hmm. One challenge would probably be I'm redefining my processes for lease renewals. That would be like the biggest thing I'm working on right now.
All right. And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you or wanted to purchase your book, what's the best way to get in touch with you or to find your book?
Okay, you can go to biggerpockets.com/bookstore, or it's on Amazon or at Barnes and Noble. And then you can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at Wealth from Rentals. And then I also have a website, ashleykehr.com.
And that's Kehr,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
ASHLEYKEHR.com.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this and you're not a member of NARPM, shame on you. Join NARPM. Go to NARPM, NARPM.org, or call them at 800-782-3452. And if you want to be cool like Ashley and have virtual assistants, virtual team members, go to vpmsolutions.com. We have over 30,000 profiles on the platform, over 30 free training courses and certifications that they can take. And it's free for you. And the way VPM makes money is they charge the virtual assistant 10%. So you can find them and you can interview them and you can onboard them, train them, and pay them all through the platform. Ashley, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.